JP Karliak here, voice of the wonderful Morph on X-Men 97. Hello.
Hello.
So, I have to ask, there was a lot of fervor about Morph before this show came forward. I laughed because I'm like, wow, a lot of people care about Morph. And they should, but also I was not expecting that. How has it been? How's the response been now that the show is out?
Um, it's actually been really good. Um, I mean, even the initial backlash, it was met with so much backlash against the backlash that it's really been a great experience. There's just been so many people who are supportive of Morph and his identity, and I think as they've seen in the past few episodes, his sense of humor, and
Right.
he's actually a really fun guy, and it's nice that even though we're certainly not forgetting about the trauma that he experienced in the previous series. I mean, we have seen him come across Mr. Sinister again, so that happened. But this is a Morph who's has a little room to experience some joy, and be part of the team.
Right. I wanted to ask about some of like the fun touches because the stuff that fans love, the ridiculously like unexpected cameos, because there was a lot of X-Men in the first show in the X-Men animated series, but there are so many more nods in 97. One of my favorite things is that you imitating Ross's Patrick? Oh, it's actually him doing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one?
For when he's imitating Professor X in episode 1.
Oh no, that's not me.
Really? Okay, so it is. I thought that they had the thing where you do the telephone game where you're imitating him doing the character, but it's not.
No,
Okay.
it's him imitating me doing the character, I guess. It's the yeah,
Oh, stuff
which
that'll
is
give
really
you a headache.
fun
It is.
because I mean, like I'm friends with Jen Hale who plays Jean Grey, and to see her do me, sort of like like more sassy impression of Jean Grey, it's really fun.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so there's other weird impressions coming of your renditions of other mutants, I would take it then, I'm sure.
I mean, who's to say?
Who's to say? Who's to say? I was gonna ask about too, other than like the fun of poking fun at poor Gambit and things like that. How did you approach the emotional moments with the Mr. Sinister stuff in was it episode 3? It was like very harrowing. And I was like, oh, our boy is very, very sad.
Yeah, and I mean, also that episode is such a brilliant horror movie nod. Like it is, it's that whole shower scene freak out is just
Whew.
classic.
Right.
As far as how to approach it, I mean, I don't think it's much of a stretch to, um, whether for me personally, but all kind of, for a lot of queer folks to rehash some of the trauma of the past, and sometimes it just comes up in unexpected ways and in unexpected waves, um, and just acknowledging that. I think we did several takes of that line, and I think there were some that were more emotional. um, I really like that we kind of went with the one that was just sort of, it was melancholy but just sort of matter of fact of like, I think about this trauma every day.
Right.
And, so it upsets me that it's back, but at the same time, it's not new.
It isn't new. Right. Yeah. Can I ask you about the fun interplay between you and Cal? It is one of my really delightful moments of any episode of the show so far is the two of them like goofing around with each other. Like there is like that friendship in the original series, but it feels much more lived in with you two bantering at each other here in
Yeah. I
97.
mean, what I think it's fun is that, they've had, even though this series picks up right where the old one left off, there is that, there is a few months probably gap.
Yeah.
And it's given, and, Morph was a part of the team at the end of the last series. So there really is those few months where they get to sort of get back into their groove of making each other laugh. And, um, Yeah, it's really fun. I'd love to tell you that Cal and I had a great time just like laughing with each other in the booth, but we didn't meet until the premiere.
Right.
We'd never met. So it was really all just going off of what we knew of the relationships with each other and the characters and just playing into that as opposed to any actual, I mean, and that's so much of voiceover is you're playing to an idea of somebody, not necessarily to the other person.
Right, exactly. Right. And I hosted a Marvel podcast with people I had never met for a year and a half before we saw each other through the pandemic. So I completely understand. It's like, oh, you could be my best friend or like on screen, like we're totally great buds. And then you don't meet each other for a while. With all of the funny, we joke around the podcast where it's not like a love triangle, it's like a love web inside of the Xavier mansion, inside of the mansion. Can we expect any sort of romantic entanglement for Morph along the way as well, as everybody is kind of has eyes for someone?
I mean, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Nice,
that would be nice.
Yeah, I would be completely open to that. But
yes,
we'll see.
We'll see. Yes. This is the fun of doing
strongly worded letters to the producers.
I've got Jake next. I'm gonna bug him now. I'm like, hey, listen, you better give JP a love interest. I've talked to them one time. He's great. Do it.
I appreciate it.
No problem. I want to ask about in the team dynamic for these episodes as well. What's it like? I know you said you weren't in like an ensemble, like a room full of everybody, but how is it fitting into those larger scenes with all of them having something to say?
I mean, it's tricky because it's really, there's a lot of back and forth banter going on with everybody talk. I mean, this past episode, the episode 4.
Yep.
Morph's only in the first scene, and he just has the one little zinger, which of course Magneto totally shuts down. But I didn't record with any of those people. It's really just me just doing a zinger in the void. And it really is a testament to our director, Meredith Lane, who is able to track what everybody's doing and how it all connects together and making those jokes and those moments play. So it feels so natural. It feels like this wonderful repartee, even though we're all doing it separately.
Right, exactly. I mean, Marvel movies and productions, notoriously, sometimes you have to just sit there and give your line to a blue void with maybe a tennis ball. So it's a thing. It's a little bit different for you guys, though, because it's really your voice. You have to convey so much about the character with just their voice. How did you go about trying to form what this version of Morph from X-Men 97 feels like?
As somebody who's played a bunch of legacy characters throughout my career, so much of it is finding that balance of how closely they want you to adhere to the original versus how much gimme
wiggle room is. Yeah.
And this character was sort of in the middle. They wanted the laugh. But besides that, it wasn't so key to be a dead-on for what Ron had done in the 90s. So I had some freedom there. And it was Ron, if I've watched all of his episodes back to back.
Right.
And it's interesting because there's elements of Morph that are more charactery, and there's elements of Morph that are just more grounded and just a natural speaking voice.
Yeah.
And I really decided to go with that, the latter, because Morph has so much going on.
Yeah.
The world of the X-Men has so much happening in it. Morph is transforming into every character under the sun. And also there's just, there's this traumatic experience that he's harboring as well as just trying to be the funny guy. I didn't feel the need to also slap a character voice on top of that.
Right.
So it's real. I mean, this is Morph, It's not, it's really not that far afield from this. And that was enough. It was enough to sell the jokes. It was enough to build the relationships. I didn't need to add, gild the lily, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you logged on to the Zoom, I was like, oh my Lord, that's this is JP. Like that's what it is. How delightful, but also very, very strange. Like looking into a TV and being like, they're talking back to me. Weird. Well, what's going on? When you mentioned the legacy characters, I did have a question for you about like, because you're the Joker, right? In is it Suicide Squad?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of yeah.
Kill the Justice League.
Justice League, yeah. How was that? Because that's super loaded. Like being Morph is a lot for the X-Men fans. I can only imagine being one of the many Jokers.
Yeah, there's a lot and a lot of Joker performances that people are very, very precious about. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure going into that. I was fortunate in that this is an Elseworlds Joker. I wasn't. It's not that I was attempting to impersonate any particular Joker that's come before. So phew, that makes it a little easier.
True.
I really got to make him my own, and also he's a Joker that's coming into a world that had Mark Hamill's Joker.
Oh yeah.
And my Joker is a younger Joker, so he's kind of still figuring out how he wants to do his Jokering. And he's hearing about this Joker that died, that was a monster and an absolute megalomaniac, and he's sort of taking notes and figuring that out. So it was really similar for me as an actor coming into this role after so many amazing performances have done before, both on camera and voiceover, that I was able to sort of listen to their performances and think of like, oh, the little bits of this, little bits of that. I think the laugh that I do for the Joker it's a lot Hamill, but a more restrained Hamill, and also has these occasional little bits of Jack Nicholson. It kind of varies. So I was pulling from different things.
Right. Yeah. But it's its own thing too.
Yeah, totally.
Each one of them feels, even though they might be like, bits and pieces, there's still some things where it's like, this is the Joker, which I feel like happens with Morph too.
Yeah, and that's sort of the hallmark of the Joker performances, that nobody can say that Cesar Romero and Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill and Jared Leto and Joaquin Phoenix were doing impersonations of each other. They're all very different,
yeah,
ways of doing the Joker. So there's also a freedom in that. That's like you have full reign to put your own stamp on it, just as everyone else has.
Right on. And when we talk about like putting your own stamp on, one of the things that's so interesting about X-Men 97 from a viewership perspective for like younger fans is that some of them never seen X-Men the animated series. Like they're like, what? It's just a new X-Men cartoon for me to consume and it's rad, so I'm excited, What do you hope that some of those viewers would take from your performance and sort of its own interpretation of these characters?
I mean, on a really simple level, just that he's funny. I hope people enjoy the comic relief that is Morph, because there's a lot of, that third episode with Jean and the clone and the baby, or the second episode with Magneto and that speech, and Storm, so much intense drama going on. So it's nice to be somebody that brings a little levity to these situations, because there is so much drama.
Yeah.
So that's base level. I think on a more complex level, I'm just so honored to be portraying this non-binary character, and to be this positive representation of a queer superhero for both the kids that need to see it because this is how they identify and they need to see themselves, but also just for people watching in general to just feel that natural representation that's in there without, and we don't call attention to it. It just is like,
right.
As I've said before, there's not going to be a very special episode of Morph. He's just there. So
it's true. It's an 80s thing. So
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so scared. Sorry, that's a Saved by the Bell reference. Carry on.
Oh my goodness. I'm enjoying this way too much. I have to also ask, or else my editors will throw me out. So it's one thing to do these impersonations of X-Men characters. We have Needle Jake and we have Needle Brad Winderbaum about other cameos. Do you think do you how would you approach doing riffs on other Marvel heroes that might sneak their way into the show?
Okay. Well, I mean, there are I mean, I think this kind of came up with Archangel a little bit
It did.
in that, you know, there wasn't an actor cast for Archangel, but I'm pretty sure I had to do like a grunt or an effort or something like that. So every once in a while, I do have to, just add a little, my own little spin on a character, just because, it's literally efforts. There aren't actual lines, and
Right.
whether or not that character is going to appear in the universe at any time soon, who knows? Mm-hmm. They haven't necessarily done the casting yet, so
Yeah.
But that's really all that I get into. Otherwise, they do have another actor that does it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. Morph really is a collaborative role. Very much.
Okay.